wish you'd understand. I just wish that God had a better plan. I'm so confused, and I need a redo. Inside of me that's begging and begging and pleading. I just wanna feel free. I just wanna feel lovely. I'm surrounded by love that's in pain. Can I wipe your tears away? Please don't hurt for me. I hate that it's for me. It's for me.
Hi, welcome to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. Thank you to Amber K for that amazing introduction into the show. Amber K is warrior number 2. She is a singer-songwriter that wrote I Hate That It's For Me. Please check out her episode. Me and Amber have teamed up just to try to help people understand what it's like living with a chronic disease and how you have to keep on fighting the fight every day. My name is Brian. I am the MS Michigan Man 64. Before I got diagnosed 28 years ago, I was playing football at the University of Michigan, and I went from living that lifestyle to 4 years after that being diagnosed with MS, and I talk about my journey as well as the journey of other chronic disease warriors around the world, just to try to help people understand what it's like, how it affects your mental health, how it affects your family, how it affects your career. Today, I am sitting down with an MSer that I met over the internet a couple weeks ago. I met Gina. She is actually from the UK, and I love talking to people from other countries. I've recorded with people in probably about 10 different countries right now. And Gina got diagnosed with her MS in 2009. She actually had symptoms for about 10 years prior to leading up to her diagnosis. And she wanted to come on and talk about her journey and how she manages her disease. So please welcome to the podcast, Gina. How you doing today, Gina?
Hey, Brian. I'm doing really well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you, Gina. Anybody that wants to come on and talk about their journey with how they manage this disease, I am all for it. Because, we just got to try to help people understand, there's not one way to attack this disease. Everybody has their own way. I absolutely love your way. And I know you got your diagnosis in 2009, Gina. Can you kind of take us through what led up to you getting told that you had MS? What kind of symptoms you were having back then in 2009?
I was experiencing numbness in my legs, and it went up from the feet, and it sort of progressed all the way up. And at one point, it was sort of from the waist down. I couldn't. If you stuck a pin in me, I could have felt that, but it felt like I got really thick skin. And it was severe enough that I wasn't driving. And then the numbness actually came into my hands as well. And at one point, it was so strange feeling that I couldn't even hold a pencil very well. So obviously, I knew that something was wrong. And I went to the doctors, as you do, and they fobbed me off, trying to say it's probably stress. I was going through some stressful times, as people do most of the time. And I just sort of Googled it. But even back then, there was still Google, and I was trying to suss out what it was. And actually, one of my friends said to me that they knew somebody that had numbness like that. Theirs turned out to be a prolapsed disc, but they didn't do anything about it. And for a while, she couldn't walk. And even though she managed to get her walking back, she wasn't able to know when she was needing to go to the toilet, and she couldn't feel when she was having sex. And I was like, well, no, that's not going to happen to me. Yeah. So in the doctors, I was, something's wrong and you don't know what it is. And that's almost worse than knowing what it is.
Right.
And the doctor's trying to fob you off. And he was saying, look, I'm sure it's stress, but would you like an MRI? By this point, I'm in tears going, yes. So I had to sort of battle to get the MRI. And it was obviously the MRI then showed up what was actually wrong. And I was referred to a neurologist And you mentioned that I had symptoms like sort of 10 years before when I was in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd had numbness again, but it was a lot milder. I just felt numbness in my feet. I knew it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
I wasn't in pain. It wasn't stopping me doing anything. But I still went to the doctors to say, hey, I've got this strange sensation. To be fair to them, they actually did refer me to a neurologist, but my neurologist just I must have saw him for about 2 years. Every 6 months, I'd go and see him. You do the walking up and down. I don't know if you've ever had that thing where they almost put a knitting needle to dip it up your throat to see how you react.
Yeah.
And it was that. I just thought, that's such a horrible thing to have done. You know what? I'm just going to live with my numbness. So I recognized that I had something going on back then.
Yeah.
But then I just stopped seeing the neurologist and thought, you know what, I'll live with it.
Right.
So 2009, then it exacerbated and got worse. And then I saw a different neurologist, and she did a bit of an investigation and talked to me a lot more. And I also had another episode about 2 years previous, about 2000 and, a few years, about 2000 it was. And I had a real severe bout of double vision. I was literally for about 2 weeks seeing double of everything.
Yeah.
I went to the eye doctor. They couldn't see anything wrong. I went to my doctor. They couldn't see anything wrong. And in the end, my, I can't say it.
Ophthalmologist. Yep.
When you go and have your eyes tested, basically,
Yep.
They made me a pair of prism glasses to correct it. And then I went to Glastonbury, which is a big festival here in the UK, and I was really worried because I thought, gosh, I'm seeing double of everything before I take any crazy substances or get drunk or anything like that.
Right.
But I literally walked into the fields, and it was such a lovely buzz. It was such an amazing weekend that it just disappeared and I could see perfectly. And I just thought, well, maybe it was stress then, and it just disappeared. So I, sent the glasses back and didn't think about it again. But it wasn't until I spoke to this new neurologist, this lady, that actually that incident came up again, and she sort of pieced the things together. And then with the MRI, she sent me for a lumbar puncture, which was another challenging thing. And then eventually came back with the diagnosis. To be honest, Brian.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was really lucky, because by the time I'd actually got the diagnosis, the time I went in and, had that conversation with her, the episode had disappeared off. So I wasn't feeling any numbness anymore. I was thinking in my head, maybe it was just stress and it's just gone away.
Right.
And she told me that I got MS. I didn't really know. I'd heard of it. In fact, a previous boyfriend, their mum had got MS, and she'd been in and out of a wheelchair. But, to my bad, I never really took much notice of her. I was more interested in my boyfriend than his mum at the time. So that was all I knew about it.
I understand that. I understand that, Gina. When I got my diagnosis when I was 27, I was a lot like you. I knew what MS was, but I didn't really understand the disease. And I'll tell you right now, I was scared. I can't lie about it. I mean, I was a 27-year-old guy. I just got done playing football, but I was told that I had something that was never going to go away, and it was going to affect you the rest of your life. And I was scared, but I didn't let that fear kind of like I didn't go hide from it. I attacked my disease. I'm like, you know what? All right, I'm 27 years old. I have MS. I got a long way to go. So you're either going to feel sorry for yourself or you're just going to attack it. And I just kind of chose the attack way. And, I'm still rolling with it. I have had my bad moments in this 28 years, but you just got to figure it out, and you just got to keep on plugging. And that's kind of the way that I went with it.
Well, you have to find your way, don't you, really? I mean, like I said, I was lucky. I was in my late 30s.
Mm-hmm.
I'd got two young boys that were about 2 and 4 at the time. So actually when I was going through this numbness, when I was knowing that there was something wrong, I'd done my Googling, I got a whole list of things that it could be, including the prolapse disc, including MS.
Yeah.
But what I really think, your mind tends to go to worst case scenario. So my worst case scenario has got a brain tumor. I've got 6 months to live, and I'm not going to be there to mother my children. And so getting the diagnosis of MS, when the relapse had abated, when I actually felt okay in myself, was a relief, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I just thought, and she said to me, she explained it quite well. But what I took from that conversation mostly was that you've got an incurable disease that is likely to get worse. And when I said, well, what can I do to help myself? Can I change my diet? Can I do? No, there is nothing that you can do.
Mm.
And so I took those three things. Okay. And I said, well, what about, medication? She said, well, we don't offer it. We can offer things, but it doesn't cure it. We've got these DMTs, the drug modifying therapies,
Mm-hmm.
that can, sort of halt the progression.
Yeah, it slows it.
Slow it down and make sure you don't get as many relapses and all this sort of stuff. But we don't offer it. They didn't offer it at the time until you've had two relapses in a 2-year period. So basically, go away, live your life, and forget about it. And if you have another relapse, then we can talk about medication.
Wow.
So that's what I did.
But that's completely different than my path, Gina. And because when I got my diagnosis, it was a 10-month process. I had, one episode, I was tripping, I had double vision, and they immediately put me on a DMT or offered me the DMT. They're like, okay, well, we got 4 DMTs out back in 1997. And it wasn't, well, go away and come back in a year after another episode. It was immediate. And it's just a different way that your neurologist approached yours.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just thought, right, well, I'll just go away and carry on. So that's what I did. But 6 months later, I had another bout and it was the same symptom. The numbness came up. Obviously, this time I knew what it was.
Yeah.
So I went back to the neurologist, and they offered me a range of different options. And I think back in the day, it was either videos or DVDs they sent me, and each one I looked through, and so they were all injections at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Some were every day, some were, once a week. So I just had to choose. And to be honest, I probably, if I was there on my own, if it was just me to deal with it, I probably would have just thought, you know what, I'm not that fussed. I'll just carry on and sort of hope for the best, really. But my partner at the time, the father of my children, he was a bit of a researcher, and he'd seen, he was scared. He didn't just sign up for this. This wasn't meant to be what we were.
Right.
And he was like, no, take the meds, take the meds, take the meds. So eventually I decided on Avonex, which was a weekly injection. I think you've had that one, haven't you?
I did. That was my first one. Yeah, I didn't do good on it, man. I lasted a month on it, and I couldn't take being sick every weekend. And I went to my neuro, and he switched me to Copaxone. But how did you do on Avonex?
Yeah, good, to be honest with you. It didn't make me sick. I felt a bit of flu-like symptoms that came in. I sort of got a bit heavy limbs, but they would literally go away with the paracetamol, and I tended to have the injection in the evening, so then I'd sort of sleep it off as well. So usually by the morning, sometimes I felt a bit heavy, for want of a better word, but most of the time, I never took any time off work or anything like that. So it seemed to work pretty well. I was on it for about 4, almost 5 years, I think. And then we were going, life happens, doesn't it? And I was going through a lot of, I call it my vortex of shit, a lot of stuff going on. Our relationship was breaking down. We had quite a lot of money problems. I wasn't happy at work. My dad was dying. There was a lot of things being called into the mix.
Yeah. And
also my symptoms probably over that time were sort of starting to creep in. So if I'd walk for a long way, I've got dogs and I used to go on quite long walks, but if I'd been walking longer than an hour, the dropped foot would come in and I'd have to sit down.
Yeah.
And it started becoming noticeable. And, my partner noticed it because we'd walked together, and he was always keen on me signing up to any disability things so we could, live off disability. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. So we ended up having quite a lot of arguments about how I was managing the MS. And to be honest, Brian, the way I was managing it really was to put my head in the sand and carry on regardless.
Yeah.
and just do the best I can. And you know, my partner was, yeah, you need to think about, if you get in a wheelchair. And I was like, well, if I get in a wheelchair, I'll deal with getting in a wheelchair. I'm not going to worry about it when I'm
Right.
not in a wheelchair.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. That's
So we
exactly.
had lots of physical.
Yeah, that's exactly the way that I had the same mentality, Gina, when I got my diagnosis. I knew that I could end up in a wheelchair. I knew that that was a possibility, but I did not want to think about that. I didn't want to prepare for it yet. If I knew that I was going to be there, then I would start thinking about it. And I'm to that point now. 28 years later. I actually depend on a wheelchair every now and then. But I mean, back then when I was 27, I didn't want to hear anything about a wheelchair.
Well, there just didn't seem to, because literally, Brian, you couldn't see there was anything wrong with me
Yeah.
unless I've been walking for a long while.
Right.
I felt like, in fact, I called myself an MS fraud because I'd been given the label, but it was like, well, actually, I can't. There's no difference. So either the Avonex was doing its job, or I wasn't having any relapses anyway, or there was a mixture of the two. But it was once it started to come in, then in fact, it was my partner that encouraged me. So fair play to him to say, maybe do your own research then, because I hadn't. I'd just taken what the neurologist had told me. There's no cure. It's not going to get better. There's nothing you can do.
Right.
And I researched, and I was looking for people who had cured themselves from MS. And I'm not a great researcher, but it didn't take me very long to find numerous stories of people that had. And the first book that I read was by a guy called Dr. George Jelinek, who is an Australian doctor who got diagnosed with MS when he was in his 40s after watching his mum ending her life because her MS was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously he was devastated by it, but he was in a position to be able to do some research. So he researched cases of MS all over the world and came up with a bit of a theory that he thought he'd test out. And the theory was that actually, if you improve your diet, and his diet is basically lowering your saturated fats. So it's a plant-based diet with fish, because your omegas are important. Increase your exercise as much as possible, and I know you're a real advocate for exercising.
Yep.
And meditation to really calm the stress. And again, I've heard you mention that on your podcast, that stress is it exacerbates everything. It makes things worse. So there's a number of other things that he followed, but and he doesn't advocate stopping your DMTs or anything like that. But these are things that you can, that's in your power, because it can be very powerless to have this thing that you can't do anything about, that's incurable, and we're just waiting for scientists to find a cure. That. And I didn't even read the whole book. I read about a third of it and thought, well, this is better than just sitting there waiting to get disabled. I can change my diet. I can do more exercise, and I can, make meditation a daily practice.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, the meditation was the hardest one for me to bring in. You'd think it'd be the easiest, but it was hardest. But that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I was really strict on my diet for about 18 months. And I'd been on that diet, around to 2017, which is when my vortex of shit was going on.
Yeah.
And the MS really flared. I was swimming one day. I was regularly swimming, and I'd done a couple of lengths fine, and did another length, and it was like my legs just almost stopped, and I was like dragging them along. And I remember driving home, and we lived at the time, our drive was quite steep. So I parked the car and had to, walk up, and I could barely walk up the drive. And I was like, whoa. Then they gave me a course of steroids, and it was that week, everything sort of, the shit hit the fan, really. My dad died that week. Me and my partner had that big conversation saying that we were, we weren't going anywhere. We were getting evicted from our house as well. That was going on. There was a lot going on, but I'd I'd sort of had a bit of a glimmer of light in this. I'd recognized that I wasn't happy in my life, not just the MS. That was just a part of it. I wasn't happy in my relationship. I wasn't happy in my work, which are two major things.
Yeah.
And obviously that has a knock-on effect to your health and all the rest of it. And I signed up to an online course, and which I didn't realize what it was about, but it was because the hook was, what are your limiting beliefs? And I thought, I must have some limiting beliefs. I don't know what they are, but I must have some. And the next thing I know, I'm on this online course, which is teaching me about the law of attraction, and it's taken me on a bit of a spiritual path. And to be honest, that's been my, I started learning. I just, when you hear something that seems way out there, but for me, it didn't feel way out there. It felt, oh yeah, this could be really what's happening. Could be how the universe is really set up. I could really, I really can create my own reality if I get in the right space and I believe the right things.
Yeah.
And I did have limited beliefs, those beliefs that just sort of stop you doing what you want to do, stop you being brave. And I recognized that I'd allowed my partner and my previous partner before him to really take the driver's seat of my life.
Yeah.
And that in itself was not in a good place.
I will tell you this,
It was
Gina.
not going to where I needed to be.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's okay. I will tell you this, Gina. I learned, throughout my journey, and it took me probably 15 years, just to realize how important it is to handle stress. I always say there's good stress and there's bad stress. And the bad stress, I mean, you got to learn how to manage that. And the quicker you do, the better off you're going to be with this disease. Because I know when I went through the most stressful part of my 28 years, it was a divorce, and my job and all that. And that was when my MS really took a shit. And that was kind of when I realized that, it is really, really important to take care of the mental part of this disease. And I didn't address it back when I first got diagnosed. I was a big, 27-year-old former football player, and I didn't want to admit that the mental part was an important part of it. Fast forward 15, 17 years when I finally did. I mean, I wish I would have realized that right off the rip. I always say this, when you get that diagnosis, I think that mental health should be involved right off the rip. You get told that you have a chronic disease, they should tell you, what, you might want to see a psychologist or a counselor, because you're going to be living with this the rest of your life, and you got to figure out tools of how to manage it. And the mental part is the hardest part. You got to control the mind part of whatever diagnosis you were told that you have.
It definitely would make a much more positive approach for people, because I mean, I feel I had my diagnosis was given quite gently. Like I said, I was in a good place when I received it, because I wasn't in a debilitating pain or anything at the time.
Right.
And also I've brought up from a very pragmatic mother who just doesn't, nothing's a problem, we'll deal with everything. It doesn't matter that so there wasn't any fear around apart from a partner, around my family, really. It was just okay, well, we'll deal with that. It's not a problem. But I think whenever a diagnosis is given, whether it's given well or whether it's not given well, which you've heard some stories as well, it's given with a big dose of fear. And when we're in fear, our body is not going to rest and repair. It's getting ready to fight or run for your life, isn't it? So our body, the central nervous system goes into overdrive, and our immune system just goes even more chaotic than it was already. So the way that we're given the diagnosis doesn't help. And I think you're right. If you're actually able to talk to somebody that then can, okay, how would you like to deal with this? Because we're only given one option with the doctors. Go on these meds or that's it. So in 2017, when I was going through this and I was following my new path, I was discovering a new path for me, and I decided I wanted to become a life coach. I wanted to help people. I was fed up doing what I was doing in the corporate world. It wasn't serving me. And then I learned about the mind-body connection. I learned about toxins in our body. And I just thought, I don't want any more meds. And when I had that relapse, and I obviously spoke to my neurologist, and they then said, well, we want to give you stronger medication now. We want to give you something. They wanted to give me a pill. A new pill had come in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't want to take a pill. Like, a weekly injection was easier actually than taking a daily pill, because I'm likely to forget it.
Right.
And then when I read the leaflet about it, on the first page of the leaflet, it said, we don't know why this works. And it was like, okay, this isn't selling it to me. I know how strong these medications are, and I don't want to be taking them anymore. I'm gonna find my own way of doing it. I'm going to, I've done, over the years, I've done loads of different diets experiments, and I haven't actually found one that's working for me. Well, that's giving me, I mean, I'm healthy, I'm strong in my body, but my legs, as I sit here now, I can walk, but I'm reliant on a mobility scooter for going any distance.
Yeah.
I can walk, but I have to have a stick or support either side of me.
Right.
So my choices have not, I'd love to say that, my choices have worked, and it's, I'm symptom free.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
But what I am is I'm clear headed. My energy is good.
Yeah.
I don't get ill. I've sailed through the menopause. So I feel like something I'm doing is good. And I know my body's my body.
Yeah.
So now I'm at a position where I do see a neurologist. He does see me once a year, or most times. We've had a few telephone appointments, but it's like I'm not doing any more MRIs. He said, "Is there any point?" I said, "No, there isn't,"
Right.
because I'm not going to change my mind on my course of action at the moment.
Yeah.
I've not seen anything. I've not heard from anybody that I think that will be different. I know people that take, what's the one where they have an infusion every month, and then they're wiped out for like 2 days after the infusion, and it's like, oh,
you know what I love? You know what I love about that, Gina? What you just said. I mean, you made it your journey. You were doing it their way or other people's ways, and then you came to a point where you just said, you know what, I'm done. And I totally respect that, because I don't think that there is any one way to attack this disease. I've been doing it 28 years. I talked to people that have done it the DMT way, and they're doing great. I've talked to people that have done it the DMT way, and they're not doing good. I've talked to people that have done it the natural way, and they're doing great, and people that have done it the natural way, and they're in a wheelchair, but it's their way, and they're happy with their way. And I think that's the important thing. As long as you're happy with whatever way you choose, and you attack it as hard as you can with the way you want to do it, you're going to be all right. You got to take care of your mind. The mind is more important about the mobility part. If you're going to lose your mobility, okay, take care of your mind, because that's been the hardest part for me, is the mental part. The physical part sucks, but the mental part has been the worst part for me.
Well, this is it. And it's accepting that where you are now doesn't have to be where you're going to be forever, and almost making the most of it. I sometimes think about life is like playing a game of Uno or a game of cards, and you get that card we've got the MS card. Nobody wants the MS card. We're trying to desperately get rid of the MS card. But at the moment, let's play it to the best of our ability.
Right.
And for me, that's like tapping into the fun parts of it. So the benefits of being disabled, and it's a double-edged sword, because you've got these secondary gains to being disabled. So a lot of the time it's like, does our subconscious really want to heal? Because at the moment I've got a car that's being paid for, that we get through our benefits system. I've got I get money coming in just because I'm on a disability sort of pension, I suppose you'd call it, really.
Yeah.
And that's like, that makes life easier. But then it's like, I don't want that to be the reason that I'm not healing. So I've got to be careful. But then on the other hand, I'm also recognizing there are a lot of plus points. When you go to when you go to the theatre in this country, you can bring a companion for free. I
Oh,
can go on train. I mean, my mobility scooter has been an absolute godsend
yeah.
because that gets me out and about. And I've had to learn how to drive with adaptations because I can't use my feet, but I'm now fully independent. You know, I can go and visit places, I can go shopping places, I can do that on my own without anybody there with me because I've got a mobility scooter and I've got a car.
That is just so important, Gina. Just like keeping your independence. I know that, if you get to a point where you have to use a cane or a rollator or even hand controls in a car, I mean, that's just keeping our independence. And that's part of the mind battle that we have to go through. I went through it when I first started having to use mobility aids. But I mean, the sooner that you like realize that they're there to help you, they're there to help you keep your independence, the better you're going to be when, just with just understanding where your life is going to go with this disease.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I also worried about what people thought when I first started using a cane, when I first started using a mobility scooter. But getting over that just frees you up.
Yeah.
Having a mobility scooter for me has been an absolute godsend, and it's enhanced my life in so many ways. It's unbelievable. My mobility scooter is bright yellow, and it's called Bumblebee.
Love
So
it.
she's gone everywhere with me. It's a she.
Love it. I love that. I don't use a wheelchair all the time, so I don't have like a power one and all that. I have a manual one. But I use anything that is going to keep me living my life. There's things that I enjoyed doing, like I was a runner and all that, and I can't do that. I love being outside and, being by the lake or being by nature, but you got to figure out how you can still enjoy those things. If it's using a scooter or if it's using a cane or if it's using whatever, I mean, that's just part of the mental battle that we have to go through. And the sooner you accept it, I think the better off you're going to be with this.
Definitely. And I think with being outdoors, there are so many things now. So I've had a go at adaptive rowing. So I've been on the water. There's a rowing club. And this year I'm going to have a go at adaptive sailing. I've discovered a sailing club nearby that help people with all types of disabilities. So it's that tapping into what you can do
Yeah.
and the things out there that you can do that you maybe didn't even know about. So it's definitely worth looking into what you've got locally.
I look at myself, Gina, and I was not a podcaster 2 years ago. I didn't even know what the hell a podcast was really. I mean, I knew what they were, but I never listened to any of them. And I thought outside the box. I have a broadcasting degree from back in college. I haven't used it in 30 years. And my daughter kind of gave me a little bit of push, and she's like, "Dad, man, you got a broadcasting degree. Why don't you get into podcasting?" And I'm like, you know what? I mean, it was crazy when she first gave me the idea, but the more I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? I can do this. I did my research. I'm like, I definitely can do this. And look at me now. I've done over 120 episodes talking to people, and you just got to figure it out. And and that's, to me, it sounds like a lot like what you do. I mean, what are some of the tools that you use? I know you said something about you love nature and doing all that, but what are some of the tools that you use to manage your MS?
I I've got an acronym that I go through that I use myself and I use my clients. So I'm a life coach, and it's called Blignite. And Blignite stands for B is for breath work. So just focusing on your breath. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling anxious, just noticing what your breath is doing calms you down and slows your breath down.
Yeah,
L is for laughter, bringing laughter into your life, even if I've done some laughter yoga in my time, just laughing just because we can.
I love it.
For no reason whatsoever. It sort of tricks the body into thinking things are okay. I is for intention. So what do I intend for today? I intend to have a good day. I intend to smile more. I intend to get the most out of it. G is for gratitude, just being grateful for what you do have rather than worrying about what you don't have. I is for ignite. N is for nature, getting outside. And whether if you can't get outside, just even just sticking your head outside the door and looking round and just noticing the sun comes up makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
And second eye is what you ingest. So actually making sure that what you put into your body is as healthy and as good for you as you can. T is for what you tell yourself. And that's so important. That actually, if you're telling yourself life is really hard, it will be. But just reframe something, just notice what your internal dialogue is like and try and make it as positive as possible. And the end E is just decide I'm going to enjoy life no matter what. And yeah, so that's my acronym that I use every day. It's my tool, my major tool in my toolbox.
I,
That keeps me going and keeps me smiling.
I absolutely love that, Gina. You got to have tools, and sometimes they change. I know that the tools that I used back when I first got diagnosed, I was in a weight room. That was one of my tools. I was working. That was one of my tools. And, as I lost the ability to do those things, I just figured other things out, because it's always going to be a revolving door. What your disease is going to do to you today might not be the same thing that it's going to do to you 6 months from now. So you're going to have to find new tools and just keep on developing the ones that you have. And if they don't work for you anymore, toss them away and find something else. You just got to figure it out every day, man. It's a journey every single day.
Absolutely, you're right. It is a journey. And you talk about a revolving door. I sometimes think about it as when you with MS, sometimes doors shut in front of you and the path that you were on doesn't look available anymore. So rather than banging on that door and being angry and frustrated, look around and there'll be other doors that are opening. There'll be other things that you can do. And it's embracing what you can do. Life life will never be what you thought it was going to be, but I think that's the same for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's got something, and if we can embrace it and just decide to enjoy whatever it brings, then yeah, life becomes more enjoyable. And surely that's what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Gina. I agree with you on 100%. If anybody wants to connect with you on your social media or anything, as I know you're a coach and all that, what are the websites that they can reach out to you? I'll put them in the podcast description if anybody wants to connect with Gina. I think everything about that you say is just awesome. Just how you attack this disease. But you go ahead and give out any of the websites that you have that people connect with.
Yeah, so thank you, Brian. I'm on Facebook a lot. That tends to be my favorite place. I'm on Instagram. Just started TikTok, so we're learning about that. And I'm under my name, so it's Gina Dallison. If you Google Gina Dallison, I'm pretty unique, so I'm pretty much on the top of the Google thing as well. So just Google me, and you'll see I'm also on LinkedIn. And if you want to get in touch, I've got a Facebook group called the Healing Vibrations Network. Come and join that, where we do some fun stuff. And I'm always happy, like you, Brian. It's just always a joy to speak to people that are living, yeah, on a similar path or would like some help on their path, because that's what I do with my coaching.
I appreciate it, Gina. And I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter where we live. I'm over here in the United States, you're over there in the UK. MS does not care whether you're white, black, or Asian, or Puerto Rican, or whatever. And it doesn't matter, and I think we just all need to come together just to try to help people understand, how to attack this disease. If you get this diagnosis and, your life's not over and you just got to figure it out. And there's such a community out there to help you, whether it's TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And I think community is just an important part of this disease, because you're so isolated when you get that diagnosis right off the rip. And, you feel alone. Nobody understands you. And I think the community, whether it's Facebook, anything on social media, I think it's really good. I love TikTok, but it's just finding people that understand what you're talking about is just so important.
Definitely. I think that's when social media can be really beneficial. I know it can be a bit of a double-edged sword again, as long as you don't spend too much time in it, and depending who you're hanging out with on social media, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stick with the positive ones,
Yeah.
or the ones that make you feel good.
Yep, absolutely,
Yeah.
Gina, if there's anything that you want to say to anybody that's out there listening to you that's in a similar situation, they got primary progressive and they're trying to figure out DMT, no DMT, or, how to just kind of manage their life and get a path, what would your advice be to them?
I would say, if I could say to my younger self, that actually life is never going to be the same again, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. And if you're able to sort of shift your perspective of actually what's important, and really for me, it's been a journey of getting to know myself better, and that's been incredibly worthwhile. So I would encourage people to just take a breath and know that you will be okay. Because if you've been given this challenge, then you've also got the the determination and the willpower and whatever you need inside of you to overcome this challenge. And you can enjoy life, even if it's not quite the same as what you previously imagined.
Absolutely, Gina. I agree with you 100%. I know my coach always used to tell me when I was playing football in Michigan, it didn't, if you won or lost the game, the sun wasn't going to come up in the morning. It doesn't matter. And I kind of use that same analogy with my life. It doesn't matter what MS is going to throw at me. The sun's going to come up irregardless. How I handle it, isn't going to have an outcome of if the sun's going to come up tomorrow. No matter what I do, we're going to have another day tomorrow. So I'm going to attack this day the best I can, and I'm going to prepare for tomorrow. That's the way I go through every day of my life.
Yeah. And here we are, and we're still going. And I think if we wake up in the morning and we've been given another day, and it's not guaranteed, then let's make the most of this day, and no matter what challenges it brings.
Absolutely. Gina, I really want to thank you for joining me today. Again, I will put everything in the podcast description if you want to connect with Gina. If you want to follow me, you can find me on TikTok, MS Michigan Man 64. I'm on Instagram, MS Michigan Man 64, and I'm also on Facebook, Brian Wallace out of Brunswick, Ohio. Hit the subscribe button, share it out. We want to be understood. The best way to be understood is to listen to us talk. Till the next episode, this is the MS Michigan Man 64. I am out.